The words hit me like ice water. Hannah's the dramatic one in this marriage. Always overreacting, always creating problems where there are none. My husband Marcus sat in my parents' living room, surrounded by my entire family, painting me as the villain in our marriage troubles. I stood frozen in the doorway, arms full of dishes I'd been bringing from the kitchen. Nobody had noticed me yet. They were all focused on Marcus, nodding sympathetically as he spun his story. My mother's face showed concern. My father looked disappointed. My sister Amy actually rolled her eyes at something Marcus said about my emotional outbursts. I've tried everything, Marcus continued, his voice heavy with false exhaustion. Couples counseling, date nights, giving her space. Nothing's enough. She finds problems in everything I do. My brother Jake spoke up. Have you thought about separation? If she's making you this miserable. I love her, Marcus interrupted, playing the devoted husband perfectly. I'm committed to making this work. I just wish she'd meet me halfway instead of starting fights over nothing. I'd heard enough. My phone sat in my pocket, heavy with truth. 7 audio recordings. 42 text message screenshots. A paper trail of exactly who created drama in our marriage. And Marcus had no idea what was coming. I'd started documenting 3 months ago, after a conversation with my best friend Rachel. Hannah, the things you're telling me about Marcus don't match the perfect husband he presents to everyone. You need proof, because if this ever comes to a confrontation, nobody will believe you over his word. She'd been right. Marcus was careful, strategic. He saved his cruelty for private moments, presenting a charming face to my family and friends. When I tried explaining his behavior, the gaslighting, the manipulation, the emotional abuse, people looked at me like I was being dramatic. Just like he said. So I'd started recording our arguments. Keeping screenshots of his texts. Documenting every incident with dates and details. Rachel helped me store everything in a secure cloud folder, accessible from any device. When you're ready to show them, she'd said, you'll have everything you need. I hadn't planned to do it at Thanksgiving. I'd imagined a calmer setting, maybe family counseling or a private conversation with my parents. But listening to Marcus trash my character to my entire family, watching them believe every word, something snapped. The time for calm conversations had passed. I walked into the living room, set down the dishes carefully. Every eye turned to me. Marcus's expression flickered, just for a second, fear crossed his face before the mask slid back into place. How long have you been standing there? He asked, his tone careful. Long enough. My mother stood quickly. Hannah, honey, Marcus was just talking about some challenges you two have been facing. We had no idea things were so difficult. Difficult, I repeated, the word tasting bitter. Is that what he called it? Marcus's jaw tightened. Hannah, let's not do this here. We can talk privately. No. My voice came out stronger than I'd expected. You just spent the last 20 minutes telling my family I'm dramatic and create problems. I think they deserve to hear the full truth, don't you? My father shifted uncomfortably. Maybe Marcus is right. You two should discuss this in private. Dad, I've been trying to discuss this privately for months. Marcus has been dismissing me, gaslighting me, telling me I'm overreacting. I pulled out my phone. But I stopped trying to convince people with words. I started collecting evidence instead. The room went silent. Marcus's face paled slightly, though he maintained his concerned husband expression. Evidence? Hannah, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the real Marcus. The one you all don't see because he's so careful about his image. I opened my phone to the audio files. Should I start with the recording from October 15th, when you screamed at me for an hour about loading the dishwasher wrong? Or maybe the one from November 2nd, when you called me worthless and stupid? Marcus stood abruptly. You've been recording me? That's insane. This is exactly the kind of behavior I've been dealing with. Sit down, Marcus. My voice was steel. He sat, but his expression had shifted from concern to calculating. He was trying to figure out how bad this was, what I actually had. Amy spoke up, her tone sharp. Hannah, secretly recording your husband is pretty extreme. That seems like a violation of trust. You want to talk about violations of trust? I looked at my sister. You want to know what violates trust? Being called stupid, worthless, and crazy by someone who promised to love you. Being told you're overreacting when you're hurt. Being gaslit until you question your own reality. I pressed play on the first recording. Marcus's voice filled the room, unmistakable and vicious. You're so stupid, Hannah. I don't know how you function at your job when you can't even load a dishwasher properly. Your mother clearly failed raising you. The room froze. That wasn't the Marcus they knew. This Marcus was cold, cruel, dripping with contempt. The recording continued, 3 minutes of him berating me over dish placement, his voice escalating to shouting, calling me names that made my mother gasp. When it ended, silence hung heavy. Marcus's face had gone from pale to red. That was taken out of context. You don't understand what happened before. Context? I cut him off. Let's talk about context. I played the second recording. This one started with me asking calmly if he'd picked up his prescriptions. His response was immediate rage, accusing me of nagging, treating him like a child, never giving him peace. My father's expression had shifted from disappointment to shock. He stared at Marcus like seeing him for the first time. My mother's hand covered her mouth. Jake leaned forward, listening intently. Stop, Marcus said, his voice tight. Hannah, please stop. Why? You didn't stop when I begged you to. You didn't stop when I cried. You didn't stop when I told you that you were hurting me. I kept my voice level, refusing to give him the dramatic reaction he'd convinced everyone I was prone to. You stopped only when other people were around. That's when you became the perfect, patient husband dealing with his difficult wife. Amy looked between us, confusion replacing her earlier judgment. Marcus, what is she talking about? He tried deflecting. Hannah's been under a lot of stress lately. She's not herself. These recordings are from arguments every couple argues. She's making it sound worse than it was. Am I? I played the third recording. This one was from a week ago. My voice, crying, asking why he was being so mean. His response, I'm not being mean. You're being oversensitive. This is why nobody takes you seriously, Hannah. You cry over everything. You're exhausting. Then his tone shifted, became almost cheerful. But sure, I'm the bad guy. Go ahead, tell your family I'm mean. They'll think you're crazy, just like I do. They already know you're dramatic. I've made sure of that. The final sentence hung in the air like poison. I've made sure of that. He'd admitted, on recording, to deliberately shaping my family's perception of me. Marcus's mask cracked completely. You manipulated me into saying that. You were trying to get me to say something you could use against me. I asked you why you were being cruel. How is that manipulation? I looked at my family. This is what he does. Flips everything around, makes me the problem, makes himself the victim. I've been living this for 2 years, trying to explain it to all of you, and nobody believed me. Jake stood up, his face dark. Marcus, I think you should leave. This is ridiculous. She's playing victim, showing you edited recordings. They're not edited, I interrupted. I have the original files, time-stamped, backed up to cloud storage. I also have text messages, 42 of them, where you say similar things in writing. Would you like me to share those too? My mother finally found her voice. Marcus, is this true? Have you been treating Hannah this way? He tried one more approach, contrition. His expression crumbled, tears forming. I'm not perfect. We've been having problems. Sometimes I lose my temper and say things I don't mean. But Hannah, we can work on this. We don't need to air everything in front of your family. You aired it first, I said quietly. You sat here and told them I was the problem. You painted me as dramatic and difficult, knowing they believe you because you've been carefully crafting that narrative for months. You made me the villain before I could defend myself. My father spoke, his voice heavy with disappointment, but now directed at Marcus. I think Hannah's right. You should leave. We need to talk to our daughter privately. Marcus looked around the room, realizing he'd lost control of the narrative. His usual charm wouldn't work here, not with evidence of his cruelty still echoing in everyone's ears. He stood slowly, trying to maintain dignity. Fine. But Hannah, we need to talk later. Really talk, just us. He walked toward the door, pausing beside me. He lowered his voice so only I could hear, "You're going to regret this." I didn't flinch. That sounds like a threat, Marcus. Want me to record it? He left without another word, the door closing behind him with finality. The moment he was gone, my legs went weak. I sank onto the couch, adrenaline draining away, leaving me shaky and exhausted. Mom sat beside me immediately, pulling me into a hug. Oh honey, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Why didn't you tell us sooner? I tried, I whispered. Every time I mentioned something he did, he'd already told you his version. I'd sound dramatic or oversensitive. He was always one step ahead, making sure you'd doubt me if I came to you. Amy moved to my other side, guilt written across her face. Hannah, I'm so sorry. I should have listened better. I should have asked more questions instead of just accepting what Marcus said. We spent the next hour talking. I showed them more recordings, more texts. Messages where Marcus called me names, belittled my intelligence, mocked my emotions. Text threads where he'd gaslight me about things he'd said or done, making me question my memory. He told me I was crazy for being upset about things, I explained. Then he'd tell you I was being dramatic, so when I tried to talk to you about it, you'd already think I was overreacting. It was a perfect system. I started doubting myself, wondering if I was the problem. Jake's hands were clenched into fists. How long has this been going on? It started about a year into our marriage. Small things at first, criticizing how I did household tasks, making jokes about my intelligence that felt mean, but he'd say I was too sensitive. It escalated gradually. By the time I realized what was happening, he'd already convinced everyone I was the difficult one. My father paced the room, anger radiating from him. He sat in my house, eating my food, and lied to our faces about you. Made us doubt our own daughter. He's good at it, Dad. That's what makes it so hard to fight. I pulled up text messages. Look at this one from last month. I asked him to pick up milk on his way home. He forgot. When I mentioned it, he said I never asked him. I showed him the text, and he said I was being petty for holding a simple mistake against him. That's not about the milk, Amy said slowly, understanding dawning. That's about making you doubt reality. Exactly. Gaslighting. He does it constantly. Makes me question what I said, what happened, what I remember. After a while, you start thinking maybe you are crazy. I wiped tears away. That's why I started recording and screenshotting everything. I needed proof for myself as much as for anyone else. Rachel had been texting me throughout, having seen my cryptic message that I was finally showing everyone. She called now, and I put her on speaker. Did you do it? She asked immediately. I did. And? They believe me now. Rachel's relief was audible. Thank God. I've been so worried about you, Hannah. Watching him manipulate everyone while you suffered has been awful. My mother looked stricken. Rachel, did you know about this? I've known for 3 months, since Hannah started documenting. I helped her store the evidence securely. Rachel's voice was gentle but firm. Mrs. Thompson, Hannah tried telling you multiple times. Marcus had already poisoned the well. Without proof, nobody believed her. The words hurt my mother visibly, but she nodded. You're right. We failed her. We should have looked deeper, asked better questions. After we hung up with Rachel, the conversation turned to practicalities. What do you want to do? Dad asked. Do you want to stay with us? Are you safe going home? I'm not going home. I packed a bag before we came here, it's in my car. I knew today might end with me not going back. I'd planned this carefully, preparing for multiple outcomes. I have an apartment viewing on Monday. Rachel's letting me stay with her until then. You can stay here, Mom insisted. This is your home. I know, and thank you. But I need space, and Rachel's place is closer to work. I also needed distance from their guilt, though I didn't say that. They meant well, but their remorse would be its own burden. Jake stood up. I'm going with you to get your stuff from the house. You shouldn't go alone. Marcus isn't there. He has poker night with his friends every Thursday. That's why I picked today. I'd timed everything carefully, Thanksgiving at my parents' house, Marcus's regular Thursday plans meaning the house would be empty for hours. Still. You need someone with you. What if he comes back? He was right. I'd been planning to call a friend, but having my brother there felt better. Okay. Thank you. Amy hugged me tightly. I'm so sorry, Hannah. For not believing you, for rolling my eyes, for all of it. You deserved better from me. You believed what he showed you. He's convincing. I pulled back. But Amy, please remember this. Remember how easy it was to believe his version. If someone you love tries to tell you something's wrong, really listen. Jake and I drove to the house I'd shared with Marcus for 3 years. Walking through those rooms felt surreal, like visiting a museum of my own life. Everything looked normal, comfortable, but now I saw the invisible prison it had been. Get everything you need, Jake said, standing guard near the door. Documents, sentimental items, anything important. We can come back for furniture later, but grab what matters now. I moved through rooms methodically. Clothes, toiletries, my grandmother's jewelry, photo albums from before Marcus. My laptop, tablet, important documents from the safe. I'd already moved money to a separate account weeks ago, Rachel's advice, preparing for the day I'd finally leave. In the bedroom, I paused. Our wedding photo sat on the dresser. Marcus smiling, looking at me with what I thought was love. Now I wondered if he'd ever actually loved me, or if I'd just been a project, someone to control. Jake appeared in the doorway. You okay? I married him. I stood in front of everyone and promised forever to someone who treats me like this. My voice cracked. How did I not see it? Hannah, abusers don't show you who they are at first. They show you what you want to see. Then they change gradually, making you doubt yourself. He moved closer. This isn't your fault. You're not stupid for loving someone who manipulated you. We finished loading my car as the sun set. 3 years of marriage fit into 4 suitcases and 6 boxes. Everything that truly mattered to me could be carried away in an hour. The realization was both sad and liberating. My phone buzzed. Marcus, where are you? We need to talk. I didn't respond. Let him wonder. Let him worry. For once, I held the power. Another text, Hannah, please. I'm sorry about earlier. I was defensive. Can we talk like adults? Jake read over my shoulder. Don't answer him. I'm not. I blocked his number, feeling a weight lift with the action. Let him panic. We drove to Rachel's apartment in silence. She met us at the door, pulling me into a fierce hug. You did it. I'm so proud of you. Inside, she prepared the guest room, stocked the bathroom with my favorite products, even bought my preferred coffee. Small kindnesses that made tears flow. Thank you, I managed. For believing me when nobody else did. For helping me document everything. For being safe harbor. Always, Rachel said firmly. Now, order is already placed for Chinese food, wine is chilling, and we're watching whatever comfort movies you want. Tomorrow we deal with logistics. Tonight, we celebrate your freedom. The next morning brought reality. 27 missed calls from Marcus on my old number before I blocked it. Emails to my work address, texts to Rachel asking her to relay messages. He was panicking, losing control, desperate to spin the narrative back his way. His emails showed the cycle clearly. First, anger. How dare you record private conversations? You violated my trust. Second, deflection. You're not innocent either. Let's talk about your issues too. Third, bargaining. I'll go to therapy, I'll change, please just come home. Fourth, playing victim. I can't believe you'd abandon our marriage over some arguments. Each stage was predictable, textbook manipulation. I showed Rachel, and she shook her head. He's following the abuser's playbook perfectly. Do not respond to any of it. I'm not planning to. I forwarded everything to a folder, more documentation for the divorce lawyer I'd be calling Monday morning. My parents called to check in. Mom sounded like she'd been crying. How are you, honey? Scared. Relieved. Free. All of it was true simultaneously. How are things there? Your father's been on the phone with his lawyer friend, getting recommendations for divorce attorneys. Jake's researching restraining orders. Amy's researching support groups for abuse survivors. She paused. We're all so sorry, Hannah. We should have protected you. You couldn't protect me from something you didn't know about. He hid it well. I meant it. The guilt in her voice hurt to hear. Dad took the phone. Hannah, I want you to know something. I believed Marcus because he presented himself as trustworthy, concerned, devoted. I should have questioned that. I should have remembered that you've never been dramatic, that's not who you are. I let him redefine you in my mind, and that's unforgivable. It's not unforgivable, Dad. It's human. We believe what people show us. I swallowed hard. But I need you to believe me now. When I tell you I'm not going back, that there's no fixing this, that Marcus is dangerous, I need you to believe that without evidence. I do. We all do. Whatever you need from us, you have it. After hanging up, I felt the full weight of everything hit me. I was leaving my marriage. Losing the future I'd imagined. Facing judgment from people who didn't know the full story. Starting over at 32 years old. But I was also free. Free from walking on eggshells. Free from constant criticism. Free from questioning my sanity. The trade-off was worth it. Rachel found me crying in the guest room. She sat beside me silently, just present. After a while, she said, "You know what I keep thinking about? That speech Marcus gave your family about being committed to making it work, about loving you despite your issues. He really believed his own performance. He did. That's what made it so effective. He convinced himself he was the victim, so he could convince everyone else." I wiped my eyes. I wonder if he even remembers the truth anymore, or if his version has become reality in his mind. The weekend passed in a blur of logistics. Lawyer consultations. Bank account confirmations. Changing passwords on every account. Filing a police report about Marcus's threatening text, "You're going to regret this," even though I doubted anything would come of it. Monday morning, I met with attorney Sharon Mills, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a reputation for handling difficult divorces. She listened to my story, reviewed my documentation, and nodded approvingly. "You've done everything right. The recordings, screenshots, documented timeline, most clients come in with nothing concrete. This makes my job much easier." She typed notes rapidly. "The threatening text is concerning. Combined with the pattern of emotional abuse, we can request a restraining order if needed." "Will I need one?" She looked at me seriously. When abusers lose control, they often escalate. Marcus has built his identity around a certain image. You've shattered that. He'll either retreat and accept defeat, or he'll fight to reclaim control. Based on these messages, I'd guess the latter. We discussed timelines, costs, strategy. Sharon would file divorce papers immediately, citing irreconcilable differences and emotional abuse. The recordings give us leverage. If he contests or tries to drag this out, we can make them public record. Most abusers don't want that. I left her office feeling both empowered and terrified. This was really happening. No going back now. Marcus was served divorce papers on Tuesday. His response was immediate and explosive. Multiple calls to my parents' house. Calls to my work, forcing me to alert HR about the situation. Emails that started calmly but devolved into rage-filled rants about my betrayal, my manipulation, my cruelty. You destroyed our marriage over nothing, one email read. I wasn't perfect, but you're acting like I beat you. I raised my voice sometimes. I criticized you when you needed it. That's not abuse, Hannah. That's being honest. You're too sensitive, and now you're throwing away 3 years over your inability to handle reality. The email perfectly demonstrated everything wrong with him. He genuinely didn't see his behavior as abusive. In his mind, he was honest and direct. I was oversensitive and dramatic. The recordings proved otherwise, but he'd rewritten history in his head. Sharon's response was swift. If he continues harassing you, we're filing for the restraining order. Forward me every contact attempt, calls, texts, emails, everything. Work became complicated. Marcus's calls to my office had rattled my colleagues. My supervisor, Linda, called me into her office Wednesday morning. Hannah, HR flagged some calls we received. Is everything okay? I'd known this was coming. I'm going through a divorce. My husband has been difficult. I've documented everything and I'm working with a lawyer. The situation is under control, but he may try to contact me here again. I've asked him to stop, but he's not respecting that. Linda's expression softened. I'm sorry you're dealing with this. We can have security screen your calls. If he shows up here, we'll handle it. She paused. Is there anything else we should know? I considered how much to share. Decided on honesty. My husband is emotionally abusive. I left last Thursday after presenting evidence to my family. He's trying to regain control by harassing me. My lawyer's handling it, but I wanted you aware in case it affects my work environment. Thank you for telling me. That must have been difficult to admit. Linda was professional but warm. Take whatever time you need. If you need to adjust your hours for safety reasons, let me know. We support you. The understanding helped. I'd been terrified of judgment, of people thinking I was being dramatic, Marcus's voice still echoing in my head. But Linda simply believed me and offered help. That afternoon, Amy called. Hannah, Marcus showed up at Mom and Dad's house. My blood ran cold. What happened? He wanted to talk to them, to explain his side. Dad told him to leave. Marcus started yelling about how you'd poisoned everyone against him, how nobody was listening to him. Dad threatened to call the police. Marcus left, but Hannah, he looked unstable. Really unstable. I forwarded the information to Sharon immediately. Within an hour, we were filing for an emergency restraining order. The threatening text, harassing calls, showing up at my parents' house, it was enough for the judge to grant a temporary order. Marcus was served with the restraining order Thursday evening. His response arrived via his new lawyer. Yes, he'd lawyered up, with a formal letter claiming I was exaggerating, that his attempts to contact me were normal relationship communication, that the restraining order was vindictive. Sharon laughed when she read it. Normal relationship communication? You're divorcing him. There is no relationship to communicate about except through lawyers. This letter actually helps our case. The divorce proceedings moved forward. Marcus contested everything, trying to drag out the process. He wanted the house, wanted me to pay him spousal support, wanted to paint himself as the victim who'd been blindsided by his cruel wife. Discovery was enlightening. His lawyer requested my recordings and texts. Sharon provided them, professionally documented and transcribed. 3 days later, Marcus's lawyer called requesting a settlement meeting. He's seen the evidence, Sharon explained. He knows he can't win in court. If we go to trial, those recordings become public record. Marcus's reputation would be destroyed. He's going to settle. The settlement meeting was tense. Marcus sat across from me, his lawyer beside him, refusing to make eye contact. He looked thinner, tired, nothing like the confident man who'd charmed my family for years. His lawyer outlined the offer: I'd get the house, my car, and my personal property. Marcus would take his car, his retirement accounts, and no spousal support from either party. Clean break, no ongoing financial ties. We also require Hannah to sign a non-disclosure agreement, Marcus's lawyer added. The recordings and texts remain private, not to be shared publicly or on social media. Sharon looked at me. We'd discussed this possibility. Hannah. I studied Marcus. He still wouldn't look at me, shame or anger preventing eye contact. Part of me wanted to refuse, wanted the freedom to share my story publicly. But another part just wanted to be done. I'll sign the NDA with one condition, I said. If Marcus violates the restraining order, if he contacts me or my family again, the NDA is void and I can share everything. Marcus's lawyer conferred with him quietly. Finally, Marcus nodded. Agreed. We signed papers. 3 years of marriage dissolved in 30 minutes of legal negotiations. When it was done, Sharon and I walked out together. How do you feel? She asked. Free. Exhausted. Relieved. I looked back at the conference room where Marcus still sat with his lawyer. Is it wrong that I don't feel sadder? That I'm just glad it's over? Not at all. You've been grieving the marriage for months, living in survival mode. This is just the legal formalization of something that ended long ago emotionally. Sharon squeezed my shoulder. You did good, Hannah. You protected yourself, gathered evidence, and got out safely. A lot of abuse victims don't manage that. The word victim still felt strange. I didn't feel like a victim, I felt like a survivor. The next few months brought healing in unexpected ways. Therapy helped me process the gaslighting, helped me trust my own perceptions again. Dr. Martinez specialized in emotional abuse recovery, and her validation was powerful. What Marcus did was systematic, she explained in one session. He deliberately undermined your confidence, isolated you from support, and controlled the narrative. That's not just being mean, that's calculated abuse. My family stepped up beautifully. Mom called weekly just to chat, never pushing but always available. Dad sent articles about emotional abuse, trying to understand what I'd experienced. Jake and Amy visited Rachel's place regularly, making sure I wasn't isolating. The apartment I'd found was small but mine. 1 bedroom, lots of light, space that Marcus had never touched. I decorated carefully, choosing colors and furniture that made me happy rather than what looked impressive to others. Every choice felt like reclaiming myself. Work became a refuge. Linda's support meant my colleagues knew only what I chose to share. Some had heard rumors about the divorce, but nobody pressed for details. I threw myself into projects, rediscovering the competence Marcus had convinced me I lacked. Rachel remained my rock. You know what I love, she said one evening over wine. You're laughing again. Real laughter, not the careful kind you did around Marcus. I hadn't realized I'd stopped truly laughing until she mentioned it. But she was right. Around Marcus, I'd been constantly monitoring myself, watching my tone, my words, my reactions. Making sure I didn't give him ammunition for criticism. It was exhausting, and I hadn't even noticed the weight until it lifted. 6 months post-divorce, I ran into Marcus at a grocery store. My heart jumped, adrenaline spiking, but I held steady. He looked tired, older somehow. We made eye contact briefly. He nodded, almost imperceptibly, and moved to a different aisle. No confrontation. No drama. Just two people who used to be married, now strangers shopping for groceries. The anticlimactic nature of it felt perfect. I texted Sharon afterward, saw Marcus at the store. He kept his distance. No violations. Her response, good. He's learning consequences. How are you? I'm okay. It was weird but not scary. That felt like progress. Marcus no longer held power over me. He was just a person I used to know, someone who'd hurt me but couldn't anymore. I started dating again, cautiously. A coworker set me up with her brother, and we had coffee. He was kind, funny, asked questions and actually listened to answers. We went on 3 dates before I explained my recent divorce, the abuse, my need to take things slowly. Thank you for trusting me with that, he said. We'll go at whatever pace you need. My family never mentioned Marcus unless I brought him up. They'd learned that lesson, I'd process on my timeline, share when I was ready. But one evening at Sunday dinner, Amy asked, "Do you think Marcus ever realized what he did wrong?" I considered the question. I think he knows he lost control of the narrative and it cost him. Whether he understands that his behavior was abusive. I doubt it. People like Marcus genuinely believe they're right. They rewrite history to maintain that belief. That's sad, Mom said quietly. To go through life unable to see your own flaws. It is. But it's not my responsibility to fix him or make him understand. I protected myself, got out, and rebuilt. That's all I could do. Dad raised his glass. To Hannah. For being brave enough to demand better and strong enough to follow through. We toasted. The moment felt full of love, healing, second chances. These people had failed me initially, believing Marcus's lies. But they'd done the work to understand, to change, to support me without reservation once they knew the truth. Rachel started dating someone new, a woman named Sophia who worked in tech. The 4 of us, Rachel, Sophia, me, and the coworker's brother Tom, started hanging out regularly. Double dates, game nights, casual dinners. Building new memories untainted by Marcus's shadow. You seem happy, Sophia observed one evening. Rachel said you've been through hell recently, but you wouldn't know it looking at you now. I am happy, I realized. For the first time in years, I'm genuinely happy. Not performing happiness for someone else's benefit. Not monitoring myself constantly. Just, content. Tom squeezed my hand. We've been dating for 3 months now, taking it slow but steady. He knew my history, understood my caution, never pushed. You deserve happiness, he said simply. A year after the Thanksgiving revelation, my family gathered again. Same house, same holiday, completely different atmosphere. No Marcus, no walking on eggshells, no performance. Just family, messy and real and loving. Amy brought her new boyfriend, a graphic designer who talked enthusiastically about his work. Jake brought his fiancée, Tom came as my +1, fitting seamlessly into family chaos. We laughed, told stories, argued playfully about football teams. During cleanup, Mom pulled me aside. I'm so proud of you, Hannah. Not just for leaving Marcus, but for how you've rebuilt yourself. You could have let that experience make you bitter or fearful. Instead, you're thriving. I had good support, I said, hugging her. I couldn't have done it without you, Dad, Jake, Amy, Rachel. You all showed up when I needed you. We failed you first though. We believed him over you. You believed what you were shown. He was convincing. I pulled back to look at her. What matters is what happened after. You listened, you believed the evidence, you supported me. That's what I'll remember. Later that evening, Tom and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. Big day, he observed. Last Thanksgiving you blew up your marriage. This Thanksgiving, you're celebrating your freedom. Crazy how much changes in a year. I leaned against him. I'm grateful for all of it though. Even the hard parts. They taught me to trust myself, to demand respect, to recognize red flags. Speaking of red flags, Tom said carefully, I want to make sure I'm not missing any of yours. What do you need from me? What makes you feel safe versus anxious? The question made me love him a little more. Honesty. Consistency. When you say you'll call, call. If plans change, communicate. Don't ever gaslight me or make me doubt my perceptions. I can do that. Easily. He kissed my forehead. Anything else? Just be patient when I'm processing. Sometimes I need time to figure out if I'm genuinely upset about something or if I'm reacting based on past trauma. I'm working on it in therapy, but it's a process. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn pink and gold. A year ago, I'd stood in my parents' living room, hands shaking, playing recordings that would destroy my marriage. I'd been terrified, angry, desperate to be believed. Now I was peaceful, healed, building something better. My phone buzzed. Rachel, next weekend, spa day? You, me, and Sophia. We're celebrating your 1-year freedom anniversary properly. I smiled and texted back, perfect. Thank you for everything. Her response was immediate, you saved yourself. I just held your hand while you did it. 2 weeks later, I was invited to speak at a support group for abuse survivors. Dr. Martinez had recommended me, thinking my story might help others. I almost declined, reliving everything publicly felt daunting. But Rachel encouraged me, your story has power. It could save someone. The group met in a community center, 12 women and 3 men gathered in a circle. The facilitator introduced me, Hannah left an emotionally abusive marriage using documentation and strategic planning. She's here to share how she did it and answer questions. I told my story. The gradual escalation, the gaslighting, the isolation. Marcus's public persona versus private cruelty. The decision to start recording, to build evidence, to wait for the right moment to reveal everything. The hardest part, I said, was accepting that people I loved believed him over me initially. That hurt worse than Marcus's abuse sometimes. But I learned that abusers are good at manipulation. They charm everyone, isolate their victims, and control the narrative. You can't fight that with words alone. You need proof. A woman raised her hand. Weren't you scared he'd find the recordings? That he'd escalate? Terrified. I kept everything in cloud storage he couldn't access. I was careful about when I recorded. And yes, there was risk. But the risk of staying silent felt bigger. He was destroying my sense of reality. The recordings helped me trust myself again. Another person asked, how did you know when to reveal everything? How did you pick that moment? Honestly, I hadn't planned it for Thanksgiving. I'd imagined a calmer setting. But hearing him trash my character to my entire family, watching them believe him, something snapped. I realized I was tired of waiting for the perfect moment. Sometimes you have to create the moment yourself. The questions continued for an hour. People asked about legal strategies, therapy recommendations, safety planning. I answered what I could, shared resources Sharon and Dr. Martinez had given me. Afterward, a young woman approached privately. Thank you. My husband does exactly what yours did. Everyone thinks he's perfect. I've been feeling crazy. Hearing your story. I'm not crazy. You're not, I said firmly. Trust yourself. Document everything. And when you're ready, get out safely. You deserve better. She left with my contact information and Rachel's, added to a support network that could help when she was ready. Watching her walk away, I felt purpose settle into place. Marcus had tried to destroy me, but instead, his abuse had given me tools to help others. That felt like the ultimate victory. Driving home, I called Mom. Hey, remember last Thanksgiving? When I played those recordings? I'll never forget it, she said quietly. I don't regret it. Not even a little. It was terrifying and painful, but it freed me. And today, I used that experience to help other people. So thank you. For believing me once you heard the truth. For supporting me through everything after. Oh honey. Mom's voice cracked. You're the bravest person I know. Your father and I tell people about you, not the details, but about your courage. How you demanded to be believed and refused to accept less. We talked for another 30 minutes, easy conversation about nothing important. When we hung up, I felt the full weight of my transformation. A year ago, I'd been trapped in a marriage that was killing my spirit, convinced I was the problem, isolated by someone who claimed to love me. Now I was free. Genuinely, completely free. Living in an apartment I loved, dating someone who treated me with respect, helping other survivors find their own strength. Marcus had tried to make me small, manageable, doubtful. Instead, I'd become powerful. My phone buzzed one final time. Tom, dinner tomorrow? I'm cooking. No pressure, just want to see you. I responded, perfect. I'll bring wine. Simple. Easy. No hidden meanings, no tests, no wondering if I'd said the wrong thing. Just a man who enjoyed my company, making plans without complications. I thought about that Thanksgiving moment one more time, standing in the doorway with dishes in my hands, hearing Marcus paint me as dramatic and difficult. How scared I'd been. How angry. How desperate to be seen, to be believed, to have someone acknowledge that I wasn't crazy. That recording had changed everything. Not just exposed Marcus's lies, but freed me to trust myself again. Proved that my perceptions were accurate, that I wasn't overreacting, that the abuse was real. Some people might say I was vindictive, that playing those recordings publicly was cruel. But those people hadn't lived my reality. Hadn't been systematically undermined and gaslit for years. Hadn't watched their family believe lies about them while the truth went unheard. I'd done what I needed to do to survive. To escape. To rebuild. And I wouldn't apologize for that. The sunset painted the sky orange and purple as I pulled into my parking space. Inside my apartment, everything was exactly as I'd left it, peaceful, organized, mine. I poured a glass of wine, put on music I loved, and stood at my window watching the city lights flicker on. 1 year ago, I'd opened my phone and played a message that made Marcus go quiet. Today, I was finally, fully myself again. Healed, whole, and ready for whatever came next. That Thanksgiving recording hadn't just exposed Marcus's abuse. It had been my declaration of independence, my refusal to be silenced, my demand to be heard and believed. And it had worked. I raised my wine glass toward the window, toward the city, toward the future stretching out before me. To truth, I whispered. And to freedom. The words hung in the air of my quiet apartment, a promise and a celebration. I'd survived. More than survived, I'd thrived. Marcus had tried to convince everyone I was the drama. Instead, I'd shown them that truth, however painful, was always worth speaking. That evidence mattered. That standing up for yourself, even when everyone doubted you, was the bravest thing you could do. The phone buzzed again. Amy in the family group chat, missing you, sis. Proud of you every day. Jake, same. You're a badass. Dad, our warrior daughter. Mom, love you so much, Hannah. I smiled, typing my response, love you all too. See you Sunday. 1 year later, and everything had changed. But the family that mattered, the people who'd done the work to understand and support me, they remained. Stronger, more honest, more real than before. That was the true gift of that Thanksgiving revelation. Not just exposing Marcus, but forcing everyone to confront uncomfortable truths about belief, manipulation, and the importance of really listening when someone you love says they're hurting. I'd demanded to be heard. And finally, beautifully, powerfully, I was. The recording that made Marcus go quiet had given me back my voice. And I would never let anyone silence it again.